urgent. Hell on the front line. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine has revealed the truth about the encirclement in Pokrovsk. You have to hear this. The Ukrainian armed forces broke through to the front line. Enemy columns were torn apart. The Russian command is in shock. Plan B is being hastily developed. They were not prepared for such a blow. The decisive battle has begun. These shots have blown up the internet. Watch for all the sensational details.
A Ukrainian crew in a German Leopard tank crushes a Russian FPV ZH-Dun drone with a skid on the road. Apparently, its operator missed the moment when he could have launched the deadly bird into the sky. Right now, the situation in the Pokrovsk-Mirnohrad direction is very difficult, if not critical. Almost half of all clashes on the front line are happening specifically in the Pokrovsk direction. Russian channels are reporting that the city is essentially encircled. The Ukrainian armed forces have no chance, but the occupying troops might make a gesture of goodwill.
The Russian Ministry of Defense has received an order from the Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the Russian Federation to ensure unhindered passage for foreign journalists, including Ukrainian ones, when they request the command of the Ukrainian armed forces to visit the areas where Ukrainian troops are encircled: Krasnoarmeysk, Dmitrove, and Kupiansk. The Russian command is prepared, if necessary, to cease hostilities for 5 to 6 hours in these areas, and also to provide corridors for the unhindered entry and exit of groups of foreign media representatives, including Ukrainian ones, provided that safety is guaranteed for both journalists and Russian military personnel.
In order to showcase the supposedly dire situation of the Ukrainian armed forces, the Kremlin wants to provide a corridor for Western journalists. The speech
is about an attempt to wage psychological and media warfare, to draw attention to the fact that the Ukrainian armed forces are in a bad situation, but in the context that Putin wants, with excessive dramatization. According
to the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, there is no talk of any encirclement. Fighting is already taking place on the outskirts of both Mirnohrad and Pokrovsk. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated that around 170,000 Russian soldiers are concentrated near Pokrovsk. At the same time, the supply of ammunition and provisions to the Ukrainian army is being carried out systematically. All the talk about encirclement is Russian disinformation.
There is no blockade of our defense forces in Pokrovsk by the enemy. These are merely statements of Russian propaganda that do not correspond to reality. The enemy's occupying army is indeed increasing pressure in the Pokrovsk direction, particularly in the Pokrovsk-Mirnohrad agglomeration area. The situation in Pokrovsk remains difficult and dynamic. Separate groups of enemy infantry are infiltrating Pokrovsk and attempting to move and concentrate within this settlement. General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine.
In reality, there is no real prospect of encircling the Ukrainian forces defending Pokrovsk, because if the situation takes a truly unfavorable turn, these military personnel who are currently stationed in the area can withdraw and evacuate to the north. Supply is ongoing. What does this mean? It means that during the supply of these convoys, which could involve trucks or other vehicles such as smaller vans or cars that are less noticeable than large trucks, the choice of vehicle is often intentional. Using less conspicuous vehicles helps avoid drawing attention, making the supply process more discreet and secure. Nevertheless, losses in these convoys could be much higher than in other cases, but still the supply continues.
Despite the difficult situation, even if the USSR has to leave Pokrovsky and Mirnohrad, the occupying forces will lose a huge amount of equipment and personnel. And at the same time, this will not change the overall situation along the front line. This is also confirmed by the intelligence services of European countries.
Of course, it is also clear that sooner or later Ukraine will have to withdraw its units from the Pokrovsky district. But, as I have said before, the capture of the Pokrovsky district by Russian forces will not determine the overall situation in Ukraine. Jens Kiviselg, head of the intelligence center of the Estonian Defense Forces.
Putin claimed that Pokrovsk would be under the control of the Russian army. That was a year ago. In reality, the Kremlin's plans have still not been realized.
Shock! Ukraine is blowing up the front. Our engineers are launching a new era of weaponry, missiles and drones of our own production. More powerful, more precise, and deadlier. And that's not all. Neptunes and Flamingos are breaking into the heart of Russia. What secret new developments are already preparing to deliver a crushing blow to Russia? Find out in the report.
Ukraine has destroyed a Russian Oreshnik on Russian territory. This was announced by the head of the SBU, Vasil Malyuk. Exactly what weapon was used by the Ukrainian Special Services has not been disclosed. Nevertheless, Ukraine's arms industry is expanding significantly every year. Ukraine is successfully using Neptune and Flamingo missiles together to strike Russia. President Volodymyr Zelensky told journalists about this and noted that while this is not widespread use, there are already the first tangible results regarding the weapon.
Missile attacks that are carried out with the assistance and support of systems such as Flamingo or Neptunes will be accompanied by a significantly large number of various different types and categories of unmanned systems, including drones, with each one of these unmanned aerial vehicles performing its own specific and unique function. Some will distract enemy air defense systems, some will destroy air defense systems, some will create intentional interference, and some will suppress them using electronic warfare.
The president also mentioned the use of the Polyanitsia drone missile, which has already struck enemy military depots dozens of times. Zelensky named the use of the Ruta drone missile, which for the first time flew 250 kilometers and struck an offshore platform, as the second positive trend.
We have quite a lot of developments specifically in drone missiles. There are some military analysts and experts who say that these are all just small-sized cruise missiles, nothing more. However, I don't quite agree with that assessment, for one simple and clear reason. Usually, a cruise missile is defined as something that has some kind of wing mechanism or aerodynamic surface that allows it to glide or fly efficiently through the air. That is, the missile is launched either from the air or from the ground, then these wings unfold and they create aerodynamic lift, which allows the cruise missile to fly long distances. Our Ukrainian rocket drones, for example, have a fixed wing that has always been permanently installed and does not require any specialized launchers or specialized casings that are inserted into these launchers to ensure standardization.
However, the greatest success for the Ukrainians is considered to be the mass use of the kamikaze drone Lyuti, which numbered up to 300 UAVs.
Lyuti is a system with a slightly different concept. It is neither external nor internal, and it has nothing in common with the Shahed. Both its control system and its guidance system are unique, and the elements present there, image recognition, AI-assisted targeting, have absolutely nothing in common with the Shaheds.
The security service of Ukraine's naval drones have improved in both payload and range, now capable of striking targets over 1,500 kilometers away. They were first used in 2022 during the attack on Russian Black Sea Fleet ships in Sevastopol Bay. Since then, these drones have been constantly evolving and improving.
Our security service of Ukraine now has significantly more ways to destroy targets than it did before. And it's not just the Malyuk anymore, there are many other things as well. If there are tasks for the Malyuks are used. If there are tasks for other drones are used. Since
August of this year, it was announced that the Flamingo missile has entered serial production, capable of striking targets at a distance of 3,000 kilometers. The modernized Neptune has already been successfully hitting ground targets for a year now. Currently, at a range of up to 400 kilometers, it has been stated that soon it will be able to strike at a range of 1,000 as well.
Urgent. Finland is preparing for battle. Panic has broken out in Russia. Finland is moving thousands of troops, tanks, and artillery right up to the border. A real military nightmare for Putin. The Finnish army is flexing its muscles while Moscow trembles with fear. What does all this mean for the Kremlin? Watch right now.
Acting proactively. Finland is deploying 15,000 troops to the border with Russia. The Finns are preparing for the largest series of military exercises of the year. Conscripts, reservists, professional soldiers, as well as units from allied countries Sweden and the United Kingdom will take part. According to the country's ground forces, the purpose of the maneuvers is to test the army's readiness to defend the state and to strengthen cooperation with NATO allies. This is
the response by the NATO bloc to aggressive actions from the occupying country. On the territory of the occupying country, in close proximity to Finland's borders, there is currently intensive engineering construction of new military bases for the occupying country's army. This refers to Petrozavodsk, Kandalaksha, and other settlements on the territory of the Russian Federation, which indicates the redeployment of Russian army units directly near the borders of Finland.
one of the largest episodes will be the Lively Century exercise, which will take place in southern Finland from November 27th to December 4th. About 7,000 participants will be involved in it.
The Russian Federation has constantly made it clear to Finland that it poses a threat to this country. Moreover, there has been a constant element of military political pressure on Finland with the aim accordingly of maintaining its so-called neutral status. In other words, there is not the slightest reason to say that friendly, good neighborly relations were established after the occupation of Finnish territories. The Russian military presence near Finland's borders was constantly increasing.
In the spring of 2023, Finland became a member of the North Atlantic Alliance. This provoked a sharp reaction from Russia, worsening bilateral relations. In addition, Finland imposed sanctions against Russia and refused to grant asylum to Russians fleeing mobilization. After that, Putin's lackeys began blaming the Finns for every sin at every opportunity. For example, in September, former ALCO president Dmitry Medvedev decided that Finland was preparing to attack Russia.
After joining NATO under the guise of defensive measures, Helsinki is pursuing a confrontational course preparing for war with Russia, apparently setting up a staging ground for an attack on us.
Moreover, according to him, Russia supposedly legally deserves reparations from the Finns for World War II, claiming that they paid too little at the time thanks to the goodwill of the Russians.
This is precisely an element of diplomatic and military pressure on Finland. Moreover, similar statements are being made not only regarding Finland but also accordingly regarding Sweden. This concerns the island of Gotland and accordingly regarding Poland as well.
Following the alcoholic Medvedev, the chairman of the State Duma Defense Committee, Andrei Kartapolov, also made aggressive statements. He stated, or rather threatened, that Russia is ready to defend itself at any moment since they have everything they need. Medvedev had previously spoken about this as well.
We cannot simply ignore the fact that at this point in time Finland is currently a member of the North Atlantic Alliance, and this in turn determines changes in our military approaches to organizing the border and to repelling possible unfriendly actions.
The political and military leaders of Finland are doing everything they can to emphasize that an attack by Russia would be an act of suicidal madness.
Acts meaning actions of direct confrontation with the NATO bloc involving direct and open opposition to the alliance, and accordingly the first countries that will be in the focus of the occupying country's army are accordingly Finland and the Baltic states. Therefore the risks are quite high. This is also evidenced by the formation of new military units in the Leningrad military district and accordingly the deployment of military infrastructure directly near the borders with Finland.
Earlier, it became known that Finland had offered NATO to establish a new military base on its territory. Helsinki could become a base for large NATO reconnaissance drones.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.